Hello, everyone, and welcome to our next Saturday video, which is talking about creating a matrix, a schedule matrix. Um, I did this last year. I wanted to do it again, and I wanted to take you through step by step, kind of um, how I did this, just to give you a rough idea of what it is like for the uh, for the executive board of the FPHL to create um, the actual matrix. So first of all, before we get into everything on my computer, I'm going to be using my laptop today. Um, we're going to look at our regional pods. Now, if you remember when last week we talked about how the league decided how to do the divisional alignment, they drew the black dotted line there, and that's how we ended up with things. But we have uh, our geographical pods, and this is how we start off creating our matrix. All right, we have four geographical groups. We have, and I know it's odd because we got 3, 3, 3, and 5. Let me explain. So, Northeast, you have these three up here: Binghamton, Watertown, Danbury. You have in the Midwest, you have Port Huron, Indiana, and Topeka. Included in the Empire Division is the Bobcats, but they are in the Southeast Pod. And this is a 5-team pod. All right. So we have the Bobcats, Thunderbirds, Ice Cats, Two Cats, Athens Rock Lobsters, and Columbus River Dragons. And then in the Southwest, we have Monroe, Baton Rouge, Mississippi, whatever they're going to be called. We'll find out in a couple days. All right. So um, I mark these off by colors, and when we look at my laptop in just a minute, I'm going to be using those colors on the matrix. All right, and you'll see step by step how I came up with this. Now, this took 3 times, a little over an hour each time of putting this together, and it took about 6 steps. But I finally came up with something in where it's decent looking. But I did have some rules that I placed upon myself when I created this. Now, keep in mind, one of the key pieces of information that I do not possess, and so, this is why it's not the real schedule matrix, is I don't have a list of ice availability for each team. I don't know what days Topeka has access to Landon Arena. I don't have information about what dates are open for the Sentinels or for the Black Bears or any of that. And that is something that's the building block that the league actually has to work with. I didn't have that, so I just kind of skipped over that step to create my mock schedule. But we're going to take a look at this, and I'll take you step by step through how I did this. But my rules that I imposed upon myself is, first rule, and this was the big one: I did not want any one team playing another opponent more than 14 times in the season. 14 games is 1/4 of your schedule. Uh, Keeping in mind that we have to, watch our travel and how much time we have teams on a bus. Um, we have to use our geographical pods and build off that. So the teams, or the pods rather, with 3 teams. Okay, they're going to be playing 14 games against each other. These three, and these three. Okay, I didn't have to do that with the Southeast pod. So when you see this, I'll explain it. But that was my big rule: maximum 14 games played against a common opponent. I wanted to try and get as many teams as possible played. We don't want to just play like 4 or 5 teams. We want to play as many teams as possible. Um, and we wanted to try and focus on staying relatively reasonable with travel. So, Topeka was a big part of that. This was one step in and of itself, just taking Topeka, because closest trip for them is Indiana, 8.5 hours away. Monroe was 10 hours. Baton Rouge, 12 and 3/4. Port Huron, 13. Mississippi, almost 14. So they're not going to be playing a lot of teams. I base this off of the rough draft that the league actually had. The league had a rough draft in which, they were kind of playing around with, okay, let's get an idea how to set this matrix up. All right, so I based it off of that. I did have access to that, but it's a rough draft. It's not their final product. All right, so let's pause this. We'll get this camera set up here so you can be looking at my laptop, and I'll talk you through this. All right, so now we are looking at the first screen, or our first step. And as you can see, I have our pods, our geographical pods, color coded. Again, we have the Southwest, the Midwest, the Southeast, and the Northeast. All right, so first thing I did was plug in games within the pod. All right, since we had 3 here, 3 here, 3 here, those were the first to go in. 14 games against each other. Binghamton plays Danbury 14 times, Watertown 14 times. Baton Rouge plays Monroe 14 times, Mississippi 14 times, so on and so forth. All right, now, because that's already 28 games, as you can see over here and underneath, all right, we didn't need to do that with the Southeast pod because there's more teams available. And we need to kind of plug them in with the other pods. So, all right, not as many games against each other. You'll see Athens and Blue Ridge. I have 8 times each, 10 times between the Rock Lobsters and Columbus. All right. Basically, what you're seeing is this and this are the same. You have crisscross lines. All right. Baton Rouge, top line, far left line. Watertown, bottom line, far right line. All right. So that is what we have for our first step. 28 games for these 3 pods, 36 games for the Southeast pod. Now, let's go to step 2. All right. Now, because of where they are geographically, I wanted to get Topeka done first. All right. Now, as much as possible, I wanted teams to play an equal amount of games home and away. Not completely possible, especially with the distance that Topeka has to travel. So we plugged in their schedule. All right, I had matching them up against the Southwest teams right here. 6 against Baton Rouge, 10 against Monroe, 6 against Mississippi. All right, plus they're 14 and 14. That got them close. That got them to 50 games total. So I had to do a deal where I had to plug in some 2s here. Have them playing Athens, Blue Ridge, and Columbus. Those are the next 3 closest teams. Athens is still 14 and a half hours away. So is Blue Ridge. So is Columbus. Everything else, Carolina and PD are actually farther away than 14 and a half hours. So I just limited to that. And one of these matchups would be this team would go to Topeka. But anyway, now that gets Topeka all the way to 56 games. So our first team is done. Topeka is done. But that was step 2. And as you see, we have, well, it was actually supposed to be 38 games here. I didn't plug in the 38s, but there's a couple of 38s for Athens, Blue Ridge, and Columbus. All right, so now let's go to our next step, which is completing the Midwest pod, because we already started them with Topeka. So let's finish them off. All right, let's go to our next step. And we have games plugged in for Indiana, Port Huron, and Topeka. They're playing against the Southwestern teams, Baton Rouge, Monroe, Mississippi. And I am taking Indiana and Port Huron and having them play games against the Northeastern teams. All right, that would be Binghamton, Danbury, and Watertown. So now I did get my totals done down below here with the 38s. And now we have 56 games done for all 3 Midwest teams. All right, Indiana plays 4 against Baton Rouge, 2 against Monroe, 4 against Mississippi. You have your Port Huron and Topeka 14s, and then 6, 6, and 6 against Binghamton, Danbury, and Watertown. So on and so forth. All right. So now the Midwest pod is done, but we have 3 other pods to finish off. All right. So let's go to working on the Southwestern pod. Now, they're getting closer in games. We have Baton Rouge now with 40, Monroe with 44, Mississippi with 42. But we want to finish them off. So make sure I access the correct one. Yes. All right. So here we go to our next one. Now, we've plugged in games against Blue Ridge, against Columbus, PD, Carolina. So there we go. That kind of balances out the travel a little bit there. And now we have 56 games done for Baton Rouge, 56 games for Monroe, for Mississippi. Plus, we have the 56 games for the Midwest teams. All right. Now we adjusted the game totals that we have for the Southeastern teams. Our Athens has 42 now. Columbus is getting close. They have 50, so we got to be careful with them. 48 for PD, 44 each for Blue Ridge and Carolina. So we're a lot closer. We're getting there. We're a little more than halfway done. All right. Now, we have this pot of 14s set. We have this pot of 14 set. We've got to finish off the Northeastern pod. All right, so let me check my notes, make sure I'm doing this right. All right, and let us go to that step. Now, we've added some games against the Southeastern teams. Plugged in a lot of 4s. I figured that that's not bad travel. The farthest distance is going to be, I believe, Watertown to Columbus. But since we are now matching 4, 4, 4, 4 for the Northeastern Division, now we've added to the Southeastern team's totals as well. So, you're probably, as you're watching this, I know it's a lot of numbers and it's kind of confusing. You're probably going to want to watch this video, hit stop a couple times, kind of look at things, and you can find your team's line. Topeka's right here, going across. Topeka's right here. PD, they're down the last team in red, going across, and going right down here. Now, if you'll notice, we are darn close. Everybody's got 56 games except Athens and Columbus. Otherwise, we're done. So, that's a real easy fix, isn't it? Yes, it is.
Thank you, Joshua.
Add 2 games each to Athens and to Columbus, and now everybody's got 56 games that they have played. The nice thing about this is that, again, for the most part, I kept it balanced, either 4s or 6s or 8s. So you can have the same amount of games at home and away against your opponents. Um, you're 14. You have 7 and 7. You have 2 and 2. You have 3 and 3. So on and so forth. The only exceptions are those couple of Topeka situations. So, you can balance things out progressively down the line. Now, the nice thing is, end result. All right. Nobody's playing every other team, obviously, but nobody's only playing a couple teams as well. Everyone is playing either 8 or 9 opponents out of 14. That's really not bad. That helps keep your travel costs down, but it also gives you a decent amount of variety. It would be nice if we could see every team play every other team, but it just doesn't work. So we have, let's see, 3, 6, 9, 10 teams play 8 opponents. Athens, Blue Ridge, Carolina, and PD in this scenario that I've created plays 9 opponents. So again, it's a good variety. Everyone sees approximately the same amount of teams. Everything's balanced, home and away, and everybody's at 56 games. I think this was a pretty happy medium that I created. Again, yeah, it's a lot of numbers, a lot to look at, but I hope this helps give you an idea of how to create this. The first time I tried this, it just did not turn out well at all. I had 16 times against common opponents, and it was just a mess. The second time that I did this, I got close, but it was still pretty imbalanced. Like Topeka was only playing 6 teams. I was like, we've got to fix that. So this is what I came up with on the third try, and again, I think it works. So what do you think? Tell me what you think on this. Again, I tried to find common ground or middle ground when I created this. And again, it was about 3 hours worth of work. So imagine what the executive board has to go through with trying to figure out dates, available dates, and all that. It's not easy. There is more flexibility with some arenas than others. For example, just using a couple teams nearby me. All right, Watertown, the Wolves are the number 1 tenant. All right, there's other stuff going on at the Watertown Municipal Arena, but for the most part, the Wolves can say these are the dates that we'd like to have. Now, Danbury, they don't have that luxury. They've got 2 different teams. They've got the pro team and an NAHL team. Plus, they have indoor soccer. I believe they're working on indoor football as well. So there's a high demand for Danbury Ice Arena. I believe the Hat Tricks are still the top tenant, but still, that gives you an idea that, well, we've got to leave dates open for the other events, for the soccer team and for the football team. So yeah, you gotta do a lot of juggling and figuring things out. And then once you submit that list to the league, once Herm Sorcher takes his list and says, okay, these are the dates that the Danbury Ice Arena is available. Here you go to the league. The league's got to take that and make sure that it plugs in and works with everyone else. So it's a headache. The process just to make a schedule, I'm sure takes more than one person, and I'm sure it takes several days, if not weeks, to do. Like I said, I saw a rough draft just to kind of give them a framework of what they needed to work with. But there was going to be a lot of tweaking and adjustments. And again, because we had our odd configuration with the pods, you know, and the other thing, I don't know if you noticed, but as you looked at things with the Bobcats schedule that I created, they play both Continental Division teams and Empire Division teams. So, the fact that they're in the Empire, not in the Continental, it really isn't that bad. Their games are still going to, their record is still going to reflect in the Empire Division. So, there we go. All right, so let me know what you think about that. Would you like me to do the schedule next year? I'm sure that it would be quite a process, probably more than I could handle. But again, I wanted to put together a mock schedule for you so you could kind of get an idea, a general basis of thought as far as what goes into creating the schedule. All right, so there we go. I enjoyed putting this together. I'm a bit of a math nerd, so I like this challenge and doing this. So I hope that this was informative and entertaining for you as well. All right, I am Gary Ryan for the Fed League Flash. We will see you tomorrow with another Fed history video.